Jai Hind, Namaste, hello and a very warm welcome to UPSC for everyone. My name is Abhinav and in this video we'll be discussing the Hindu and Indian Express for the date 25th of October 2020. Now for your convenience, you can get the PDF for the video from my Telegram channel, the link to which I have provided in the description. And also I have added timestamps in the description. So if you want to skip to a particular use, you can use those timestamps. And please do subscribe to our channel if you like our videos and press the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any new video that we post. Also, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. So without wasting your time, let's get started. So starting with the Hindu, front page, extra interest charge to be credited by November 5. So we have already discussed this twice or thrice. So there's nothing really much to tell. Just that government has come out with the modalities about the interest moratorium scheme, which would provide a moratorium on loans up to rupees 2 crore for 8 categories of loans, including home, education, consumer, and loans to MSMEs, right? So this is basically for those people who opted for moratorium. Now government has said even those who did not opt for moratorium, they will also get the benefit of not paying the compound interest. They'll just have to pay the simple interest. These are the modalities. Aggregates of all loans must not exceed 2 crore. Eligible borrowers will get benefit irrespective whether they availed moratorium or not. The lenders have been asked to set up grievance redressal system for the scheme within a week. And the government will reimburse banks and NBFCs after they credit loan accounts and submit claims. So this will increase some paperwork for the banks, because you as a consumer, you'll go to bank, you'll fill a form and you tell them that give me back my money. Then they will forward that, right? And then government will reimburse that. So it will be more paperwork for these banks, but you will get the benefit. So these are all the modalities we've discussed before as well. That's why I'm not getting into it about the scheme up to 2 crore, consumer durable, automobile. So we've discussed this. So you just read the PDFs and you'll be done with it. Now directly to page 8, Nepal has not diluted Kalapani claim. So the controversy we discussed yesterday, that Mr. Oli, he greeted people with the greeting cards that had insignias and Nepalese map, but that was the old map, not the new map. And we also discussed that Nepal has introduced a new map which has these 3 regions. I'll just show you: Kalapani, Lipulik and Limpuduraya, right? And also they have amended their constitution to include those regions in their national insignia as well, right? So this all goes back to 1816 Treaty of Sagoli that was signed between East India Company and Nepal. And this is basically about a tri-junction. I'll just show you. And as per this treaty, the territories west of River Kali, they should belong to India. Now there is a dispute about perception regarding the River Kali and its tributaries. If you want to understand the whole thing, I have a video on my channel. I'll just provide the link to it in the description. You can watch that video. I'll just show you the area. So this is the area. See, this is Nepal, India, and this is Pithoragarh district of Uttarakhand. So Lipulek, Kalapani and Limpiyadhura. Now Nepal is claiming these 3 regions as under its own territories. Why? At the behest of its master, China. Like China speaks of historical maps, Nepal is also talking about historical maps. And I also told you how Mr. Oli is enamored by certain Chinese ambassador to Nepal. So that is the whole background. Now he's trying to mend his way. Why? Because he's a confused person. So probably something has not gone right with China. So he's again making overtures to India. They're trying to rebuild the relationship, because at the end of the day, Nepal knows that India is far more important for Nepal than China. And China is not a reliable partner. India is. So that is the reason why probably he's trying to mend his ways. Then page number 9. PM inaugurates 3 Gujarat policies. So you just need to know the headlines. One is about the solar energy. So that is called the Suryoday Yojana in Gujarat, right? Next, the Carbine deal, a benchmark for UAE firms to invest in India. So you can use this as an example for your paper 3 Indian defense industry, right? So this is about close quarter carbine guns that the army had ordered from UAE. Now there were news that that order has been cancelled, but UAE says that they have not received any official communication, and they've also found partners to making these guns in India to produce the indigenization content at about 60%. So this is an example you could use, right? Then this one is important because UPSC has been increasingly asking questions about environment and ecology both in prelims and also in the mains. So here we'll get to know about Himalayan brown bear. So outlook bleak for Himalayan brown bears. Study predicts massive habitation decline by up to 73% by the year 2050 due to climate change. Let us look at it quickly. So a recent study of the Himalayan brown bear, Ursus arctos isabellinus, has predicted a significant reduction in suitable habitat and biological corridors of the species. Why? Because of climate change. Now the altitude at which this species live, that is experiencing climate change at a faster rate, prompting scientists to suggest an adaptive spatial planning of protected area network in the western Himalayas for conserving the species. It is one of the largest carnivores in highlands of the Himalayas. The study was carried out by Zoological Survey of India and predicted a massive decline of 73% in bear's habitat by 2050. So the losses will be a result of loss in habitats from 13 protected areas. 8 of them will be completely uninhabitable by 2050, followed by loss of connectivity in the majority of protected areas. So what happens? For example, this is a huge area. So there would be pockets called protected areas, and then there would be pathways between them. So there is a problem of connectivity, and there is also a threat to these areas. So that is what they are saying. The elevation gradient in which the brown bear is distributed is most vulnerable to global warming, as this elevation belt is getting warmer faster than other elevation zones of Himalayas. Now about the animal, you can read, these are just facts. The range northwestern and central Himalayas, including Pakistan, India, Nepal, Tibetan Autonomous Region, Bhutan. Populations are present in Great Himalayan National Park. Now see, these are the type of questions you get in PT, that you will find brown bear in which of the locations. So Great Himalayan National Park, northwestern and central Himalayas, Pakistan, India, Nepal. Desai National Park in Pakistan, and may also be present in southern and western Ladakh in the upper Suru and Zanskar valleys. Now its habitat is high altitude open valleys and pastures. Talking about status, so in the IUCN Red List, it is marked as vulnerable. I'll just give you homework. I think in class 9th NCRT or class 8th NCRT, there's a, I think chapter 2 or 3, it talks about IUCN. So please read that. It will help you. You can also do some internet search. I, as it is, would be providing you this list at some point or the other. I am bound to do that, but please make your own effort as well, right? And they are also listed under Schedule 1 of Indian Wildlife Protection Act. Now tomorrow there will be no issue of Hindu, so we'll have lesser workload. So it is a good opportunity for you. You can read some NCRT, then I would suggest that you start with geography. Now what are the threats? Habitat loss and killing by livestock herders and poaching for fur. And in Pakistan, there is additional threat of habitat insularization. That means they are just decreasing or squeezing their habitats, and bear baiting. Overall, the population is in decline. So these are all human actions direct and climate change indirect. So in all, their populations are dwindling. Countries battle virus as WHO sees exponential rise. So just the headline. Again, I'm telling you, please take precautions. Don't venture out unless until absolutely necessary, and avoid crowded places. Because of the sense of complacency, Europe is also experiencing the second wave, and they are going for massive lockdowns, and same is happening in America. As a matter of fact, America yesterday made the record of highest single day cases. So the World Health Organization has earlier warned of an exponential rise in infections threatening health systems' ability to cope. So this problem is going to be there. Please take care. Now yesterday we discussed how Sudan is also going to formalize its ties with Israel, and it is going to recognize Israel as a country, right? Now why? Because it was a deal between US administration under Trump and Sudan. Trump said that we will remove your tag of state sponsor of terror in lieu of, number one, giving compensation to Americans who were victim of terrorism emanating from Sudan, and number two, recognizing Israel. So as obvious, there are reactions from Iran and Palestine. Then page number 12, science and technology. First we'll see this one, room temperature superconductivity possible but under severe pressure. Now what is superconductivity? Superconductivity means that whatever material that you are using, a metal, mostly you use a metal for conducting electricity. So it gives zero resistance to that flow of electricity. Now zero resistance means that no loss of electric power, right? No heating of the wires or the medium through which you are transferring. So that means higher data speeds and better efficiency of the whole system, right? Because almost 30 to 40% of your electricity is lost during transmission and distribution. Some part of it is also because of the resistance, other is because of theft and whatnot. So if we are able to do that, then the possibilities are numerous, right? For example, super computers could be made if we are able to attain superconductivity at room temperature. But that does not happen, unfortunately, as of now, because there is a thing called critical temperature. These metals have to be super cooled to attain this superconductivity. And that temperature, critical temperature, is the temperature at which any metal starts showing superconductivity. And it is generally in a range of kelvins like minus 273, minus 400 degrees Celsius, in those ranges. So it is difficult. Now scientists have found a way to produce superconductivity at room temperature, but for that pressure has to be raised to an unimaginable level. For example, in this case, they used a diamond anvil cell to produce the high pressure of 2.6 million atmospheres. So 1 atmosphere is the pressure that you and I, we all observe in natural or normal environmental conditions. So 2.6 million times of that pressure, they were able to attain superconductivity at room temperature. So again, there are no practical possibilities as of now, but it opens doors for further research and development. So starting from hydrogen sulfide, infamous for its rotten egg smell, a group of researchers at University of Rochester, Intel Corporation and University of Nevada in US have created a material that is superconducting at 15 degrees Celsius. That is, it shows zero resistance to the flow of electricity through it. Such a material would have hitherto unheard of applications from power supplies to quantum computers. The only caveat is that it needs ultra high pressure of about 2 million atmospheres, putting off any thought of application to the future. Now this is telling us about how it could be achieved, and this person called Wegener and Huntington, they predicted in 1935 that solid hydrogen can be metallized. So you can metallize it, but at a very high pressure. Now, true superconductor, if placed in a, so they conducted some tests. I'm not getting into those tests. I'm just telling you some qualities of superconductors so that if there's a question in prelims about it, you would be able to answer it. So a true superconductor would, if placed in a magnetic field, try to push out the field from its interior. This is called perfect diamagnetism. I'm sorry if it does not make sense to you. If somebody's from the science background, they'll be better able to understand it. Just know that superconductor, it will push out magnetic field, and this property is called diamagnetism. It is known that sufficiently high magnetic fields can destroy superconductivity in a material. So again, there could be a question like regarding superconductors, high magnetic field amplify their superconductivity, decrease their superconductivity, or destroy their superconductivity, or have no impact on their superconductivity. So sufficiently high magnetic field destroy superconductivity. Now very important news relating to your history, paper 1. This was your paper 3, science and tech, and this is paper 1, history, right? Evidence of dairy production in the Indus Valley Civilization. So there are new things we are getting to know about the Indus Valley Civilization. For example, in 2016-17, there was a study by IIT Kharagpur that put the date back of Indus Valley Civilization by at least 2500 years. So it could be as old as 8000 years. And if you remember, some days back, I discussed how Ministry of Culture has made a team to establish the roots of Indian civilization and Indus Valley Civilization 11,000 years ago, right? So there are many things that have to be discovered. Unfortunately, the historical evidences that we got in India, they started with the British, the Archaeological Survey of India. Now they had their own agenda. They pushed false theories like Aryan versus Dravidian, and I'm extremely sorry that I see my countrymen fighting over such stupid things. Aryan versus Dravidian, insider versus outsider, they all made this up, and our history has been severely distorted. So it is time for the government, whichever political party, they should bring out the real history, because the historians hitherto, they have been married to particular ideologies, and that has severely impacted what they write about India. And one of the most disgusting things that I find is that people look at foreign historians to validate the Indian history. Why should you do that? Those guys have their own agenda. So India is now trying to rediscover its path. And if you remember, Swami Vivekanand said it first, that you should know your past, rediscover your past and take pride in it. Now that does not mean you should be blind and you should be, blabbering false things, but you should have a proper idea about your civilization. So recently there was also a study that proved that there is no Indo-Aryan thing here. All people came to this land at different points of time. They all mixed and we are the result of that mixture. Nobody is superior, nobody is inferior. All these things are useless. We all are human beings. We all are Indians and we all are one. So anyways, getting back to it, let us see what they have found. Now the year 2020 marks 100 years of discovery of Indus Valley Civilization. So all of you who are preparing for civil services or any other examination, please do make it a point. You read about Indus Valley Civilization from both old and new NCERT, right? And you should cover 6th to 12th. Don't go for just 11th, 12th. And 6th to 12th, it is beautifully built up. They graduate every time your knowledge. And I think for 6th to 10th, it won't take you much of time to read it. But please do make it a point that you read your NCERTs regarding this Indus Valley Civilization. So in that way, at least you will be covering your one portion of your syllabus, right? Now this research paper is from Department of Anthropology, University of Toronto, Canada. This shows that dairy products were being produced by the Harappans as back as 2500 BC. Now these scientists, they analyze residues on ancient pots and traces on those pots indicate milk may have been boiled before consumption, and there were also possibilities that they were also making curd. Now they also found something about animal husbandry by using carbon dating and analyzing the bones. So the team was also able to show which type of animals were being used for dairy production. Now please pay attention. This is very, very important because there was a question in prelims, I think 2015 or 14, where they asked that Harappan civilization was a horse-centric civilization. So it was not a horse-centric civilization. There was another point added that there were no horses in Harappan civilization. So again, I've told you, if there is a very strong worded statement, then 95% or 99% times it is wrong. So you can never be sure 100% that there were no bones, and later on they did find some sites where there were bones of horses. So yes, horses were there, but they were not the main drivers of that or the main beast for work in that civilization. It was bulls, right? So one point was right, one was wrong, but people were confused. So these are the things. So your history is also evolving. You read your NCERTs, that is your gold standard, plus the latest changes that are happening, right? So the preliminary study suggested that most of the cattle and water buffalo died at older stage, suggesting that they could have been raised for milk. So we have been using these cattle for milk for a very long time, whereas the majority of goats, sheep died when they were young, indicated they could have been used for meat. Now they also say that there was possibility of industrial level of dairy exploitation. The Harappans did not just use dairy for their household. There were large herds indicate that milk was produced in surplus so that it could be exchanged and there could have been some kind of trade. This could have given rise to industrial level of dairy exploitation. Now about this civilization, not much is known about the political culture. So they say it is a faceless civilization. Most fascinating thing about the Indus Valley civilization that it is faceless. There is no king, no bureaucratic organization, but very close regional interactions between settlements, a symbiotic relationship of give and take, which helped the civilization survive for so long. So please, please, please make it a point that you read about Indus Valley civilization from class 6 to 12th, both old and new NCERT. Now some of you might say, why so much of work? Because like I said, UPSC is evolving. There's no guarantee from where they would ask, and it won't hurt you. If you can watch meaningless series for hours and hours, I think you can read these chapters. Moving on. Now page 13 FAQ, the chronic battle with malnourishment. So we have already discussed this 3 times, I guess, the global hunger index. So we'll quickly go through this. Now there are only some relevant points that what is the global hunger index and what determines its ranking. So we'll see this. Then how does India fare on different parameters? This. What are the main causes for high levels of child stunting and wasting in India? See, these causes, they are generic. So we will discuss these. Now other things we won't be getting into. Why? Because till the time next year you're preparing for examination, there would be a new report, new figures. So that is why I'm not getting into it, and it's not going to help you that much. If you want, you can read it on your own. There's nothing rocket science about it, right? I would suggest that you read it, but I'll be discussing only selected areas. So let us get into it. So I've already told you that there are 3 dimensions and 4 indicators, right? And every dimension has equal weightage, 1, 3, 1, 3 and 1 by 3. Child mortality, under 5 mortality rate, then child undernutrition. This has been divided into 2, wasting and stunting. Stunting means for your age you have less height, and wasting means that for your height you have less weight, right? Then inadequate food supply. Now I also told you about nourishment and nutrition. Nourishment is about the calories or the quantity, and nutrition is about the quality of your food. So inadequate food supply deals with undernourishment, and it is for both adults and children. But these 2 indicators, they are specifically for children, and they largely deal with nutrition. Of course, nutrition can only be there. First, there should be nourishment, right? But here nutrition is the main indicator between the 2. So this is how the scale is made, and the score is out of 100, right? So GHI is an annual peer-reviewed publication by Concerned Wildlife and Welt Hunger Life. It aims to track hunger at global, regional and national levels. It uses 4 parameters we've already discussed. Then the data set that it uses from WHO, the World Bank and United Nations, but all of these organizations, these international organizations, they get data from national organizations. In case of India, it is the National Family Health Survey. There's always a time lag in such data, so the 2020 scores reflect data from 2015 to 19. Now this scale is a 100-point scale, 0 meaning no hunger at all. Countries scoring 9.9 or less are classified as low severity, 10 to 19.9 moderate, 30 to 34.9 serious, and 35 or more is alarming. So these are the categories: low severity, moderate, serious and alarming. And you see 0 to 9.9, 10 to 19.9, 20 to 34.9 and 35 and above. India's score was 27 point something. So it comes in this category, serious, right? Now again, I have earlier shared this as well. So you can take your screenshots, or you can take the PDF and you can read it on your own. It is telling the same thing: color coded, low, moderate and serious. Then how does India fare on different parameters in comparison to other countries? So India falls in serious category, 27.2. There is an improvement from 2 decades ago when it was 38.9, but the scores are abysmal when it comes to its peers in BRICS countries. China and Brazil, they score under 5, which are considered to be very low levels of hunger, and South Africa is moderate, 13.5. So that is a shameful thing for us. Now India is in a very serious category. It stands with some of the poorest African nations, as well as among its own South Asian neighbors. Only one country it has scored better than, that is Afghanistan. Rest other countries have scored better than India. Our rank is 94 out of 107, sharing the rank with Sudan. So today we discussed 2 things about Sudan. One was the deal with Israel, and second this. Overall terms, now these are the percentages. You can read them at your own leisure from the PDF. Now some important points. Number 1, seasonal phenomena. Hunger is a seasonal phenomena in many parts of the country, with families dependent on agriculture for their livelihoods facing lean periods based on the sowing and harvesting cycle. So it is true, when they are sowing, so that time they don't have expendable income, so they might be facing hunger, but at the time of harvesting they have some access to grain, so at that point they might not be suffering from hunger. So the seasonality differences are reflected in the National Family Health Survey's 3rd and 4th rounds, but it says that even the comprehensive National Nutrition Survey shows the same 17.3% rate of wasting. Now this is important, please pay attention. What is the main cause for such high levels of child stunting and wasting in India? Very interesting. Now there is an interesting difference observed between child wasting in South Asia and poorer nations of Africa, according to researchers. So when children in Africa are born, they are healthier, but as they grow, they become malnourished. But in case of South Asia and especially India, the children, even at the time of birth, are suffering from malnourishment. So African babies are usually healthy at birth, and they grow up into their toddler years. Undernourishment starts to kick in. South Asian babies, on the other hand, show very high levels of wasting very early in their lives, within the first 6 months. The root cause, please pay attention. Mothers are too young, too short, too thin and too undernourished themselves, before they get pregnant. So even before pregnancy, too young, too short, too thin, too undernourished. During pregnancy, same condition, and even after giving birth and during breastfeeding. So when the source, the mother herself, is in such a poor and pathetic condition, then of course her baby would also be suffering from problems. And it makes a very important point that this is more than just a health issue. There are social factors like early marriage. Now, very important figures again. Almost 42% of adolescent girls aged between 15 to 19 have low body mass index, while 54% have anemia. So government runs a iron folic program where it gives iron folic tablets to girls in government schools in the adolescent age to tackle this problem of anemia. Almost 27% of girls are married before they reach the legal age of 18 years. And if you remember, there was a discussion that Government of India is going to raise the legal age of marriage for girls from the present 18. And 8% of adolescents have begun childbearing in their teens. Almost half of all women have no access to any sort of contraception. These poor indicators of maternal health have dire consequences for child's health as well. It is but natural. Now, poor sanitation also has a role. It leads to diarrhea, which is another major cause of child wasting and stunting. At the same time, last National Family Health Survey, almost 40% of households were still practicing open defecation. Only 36% of households disposed of children's stool in a safe manner. 1 in 10 children under the age of 5 suffer from diarrhea. So these are the figures, very, very important figures, the ones that I have color coded in red. So you need to have your notes. You save this part of the PDF because you can quote them anywhere, be it your essay, be it your, if you're into sociology, then sociology, and for your GS answers, right? Then forecasting COVID-19. So this is about the super model, the mathematical model that Department of Science and Technology, it released a report around, I think, 19th or 20th. They said that India had already reached its COVID peak, and by February, the cases would drop, but there were some conditions like there should not be any peak during the festive season, and there should also not be any mutation in the virus during the winter season, right? Now, these assumptions and these results are too simplistic, and at the time of releasing that report, Department of Science and Technology and Government of India, they made it clear that these are meant only for policy purposes. In real life, they have no application, right? Now, these people, today they had no news, so they have produced 2 articles about the same thing and they are criticizing it. We already know the criticism, so we are not going into the criticism. If you want, you could read them. Nothing rocket science, just the things I told you, right? Now, what is the national supermodel? Supermodel, as one would, aggregate the best of existing mathematical models, and hence the name, using different equations that show how multiple variables such as infections and deaths vary with respect to one another on different parameters. Modelers try to estimate the fraction of the population which is infected at a particular point of time. Now, how are the predictions arrived? So today they are saying SIR model. The other day they told us the SEER model. So there is not much of a difference. Just E word is missing, which is exposed. Rest all are the same thing. So this SIR model divides a given population into 3 groups: susceptible, infectious, and recovered. Now it says over the time the number of people in each group change. Obviously, the number of susceptible people is highest at the beginning. That is but natural. For example, since everyone who is not infected is considered susceptible in most cases. At this point, the number of infectious individuals is at its lowest. As the time passes, the number of susceptible people decreases and the number of infectious people increases. This model assumes that at any given point of time, an individual in a defined population will be part of one of these groups. But true, the model's output is dependent on what is fed into it. If you remember, we discussed that it is extremely sensitive to the input data, and there were problems with input data as well, right? So a key differentiator in the super model was that it purported to account for the asymptomatic. So that was the only difference. Now, major findings we have already discussed, and credible, then again, it was just for policy purposes and it has no real life impact, right? Because it was a panel of 7 people and only 3 members, they signed on the report, right? So that is what it is telling. The authors have relied on data from a popular crowdsourced database, covid19india.org, and acknowledged that the major limitation in their model was the non-availability of accurate data. And since this model is highly sensitive to input data, then it marks a question on its validity. officials from the health ministry have been non-committal about India passing the peak. So please, again, I'm telling you, do not be complacent. Please take precautions. Now the Indian Express front page, SMS digital certificate schools as booths in blueprint for COVID vaccine drive next year. So we've discussed already that Government of India has made elaborate plans of distributing the COVID vaccine and ensuring that the ones who require it most get it on priority base. They have made elaborate plans. We've discussed about NVIS. We have discussed about use of digital card, either the NDHM card, National Digital Health Mission card, or Aadhaar card. They'll be using multiple ID proofs to give you the vaccine, right? NVIS would track the vaccine from the source to the beneficiary, including the temperature of the storage facilities, right? We've discussed all of that already. Now they're also going to use SMS alert. You can schedule your vaccine appointment online. Then you'll get a QR certification. You can also store your QR certification in the Digi Locker. So these are all the programs and policies that they're making, because most probably it is going to be a 2-shot vaccine, and probably you'll also need some follow-up after that. If you remember, we discussed yesterday that some of the vaccines, it could be the case that you get one today and then after 2 months, 3 months, or after a year, you'll again need to get a shot. So they have made these preparations. Let us look at them. So an SMS delivered to the beneficiaries day before vaccination detailing time and place, QR code certificate generated after each dose, and health facilities involving large network of schools on the line of elections in the immunization drive to ensure speedy access to the vaccine. And if you remember, 3-4 days back, we discussed Prime Minister's statement, and he told the country to prepare itself on the lines of elections to go about this vaccination drive. Now they have also decided to add a key feature to the EVIN Electronic Vaccine Intelligence Network, an indigenously developed technology that tracks vaccine stocks digitally, that will track the beneficiary, the person who will be vaccinated. So beneficiary tracking will also be there. The platform has procurement storage in 28,000 odd cold storage facilities, tracking their temperature, and going ahead tracking their movement from storage point to the health facility or sub facility. So overall, everything would be monitored and tracked. Since the vaccination drive will be conducted in different phases and they will also include multiple doses, the electronic platform is being developed where vaccination sessions can be scheduled. Accordingly, platform will inform beneficiaries in advance about date, time, location of the vaccination center. The platform enables one to schedule session. Once session is scheduled, the system generates an SMS which informs about date, time, and venue. Once a person is vaccinated with no adverse event afterwards, a QR-based digital certificate will be generated, and it could be stored in the MIT's flagship initiative, the Digi Locker, where they could save their certificate. Now, center expects to receive and utilize 400 to 500 million doses and cover approximately 20 to 25 crore people by July 2021. So even if a vaccine becomes available, it is still some time to go. By July 2021, out of 130 crore population, only 20 to 25 crore people would be vaccinated. So again, every time I say that, again I'm saying that, please take precautions. Iran curbs won't hit Chabahar, US signals climb down for India. So basically, US has banned 18 Iranian banks, and anybody making transactions with them would also face actions. So this was a problem for India, because Chabahar port is very, very important in India's strategy to access not only Afghanistan but also Central Asia, because Pakistan is lying in between. We don't have a direct access, and Afghanistan is very, very strategically important for us. So that has been an irritant for us. This US blacklisting of banking entities and curbs on Iran, which were affecting our bilateral relations with Iran. And if you remember, earlier there was a news, we discussed that a minister of Iran had said that they would be cancelling India's contract at Chabahar. Later it was clarified that it would not be cancelled, and there were also reports that Chinese would also be involved in development of Chabahar. Probably it was to put pressure on India. So now US is really desperate to sign agreements with India before the election, so that if the regime changes, Joe Biden becomes president of America, there could be reversal in America's stand with Iran. So they are trying to make some legacy before the elections. So they are very, very adamant, or they are very, very hopeful of signing the BECA. So they are giving some leeways to us, right? So let us look at it. So see, this is the whole thing. Our plan is that from Kandla port, we'll be sending materials to Chabahar. Then Chabahar, this whole Iran rail network is there, and it was a controversy regarding this rail network only, that India was not providing funds. So Iran was trying hardball. Then from Zaranj, there is this Zaranj Delaram Garland Highway. See this shape like a garland. It joins all the major centers in Afghanistan: Herat, Delaram, Kandahar, Kabul, Mazar-e-Sharif. So this is very, very important for India, more so in the light of American pullout from Afghanistan. Now Pakistan again would be creating problems for India from Afghanistan, and China would also be entering big time into Afghanistan. So we need to have our say in Afghanistan, and this project is very, very strategically important. Right now we are just saying that we are using this port to provide COVID relief in terms of food grains, medicines, chemicals to the Afghani people through this port. And America has also given us a backdoor entry to use this under this condition only. So ahead of the Indo-US 2+2 ministerial, Trump administration told Indian government that the development of the Chabahar port in Iran will not be impacted by US sanctions on 18 major Iranian banks. Told New Delhi that sale of agricultural commodities, food, medicine and medical devices to Iran, both by US and non-Americans, is permitted. And these are the critical areas where we are coordinating with Iran and Afghanistan. Also, waivers granted by the US State Department and exceptions in US law which allow reconstruction and development of Afghanistan remain valid. Key to humanitarian assistance, Chabahar port has emerged as the connecting point for the region to deliver humanitarian assistance during the pandemic. The humanitarian assistance through the Chabahar port has been one of the key elements of India's Afghanistan strategy and is a symbol of India's people-to-people centric approach in diplomacy. US provided exemption to India from sanctions on Chabahar port as it recognizes that this project is lifeline for Afghanistan to receive humanitarian supplies from India. So this 2+2, let us see what happens, what really comes out of it. Now this cashback for all borrowers, we have already discussed. You read that PDF and you will be free from this burden. Then page 6, PM Kisan Suryoday Yojana will be a milestone for farmers in Gujarat. So this Suryoday Yojana, where rupees 3500 crore will be spent on next 3 years to provide solar power to farmers for irrigation during daytime. So again, you can use this as an example of sustainable farming, right? And farming reforms, and also the sustainable energy projects in India, because India is spearheading the International Solar Alliance. So there could be questions about the status and the implementation of solar projects in India. So this is a good example. Then if you remember, we discussed about Osiris Rex. This is named after the Egyptian god of underworld and also of regeneration, right? And this was basically a probe, and it used its robotic arm to pull some material from the Bennu asteroid, right? So some of the material that it collected is being lost out into space. So if you remember, I told you that they'll take 2-3 days to confirm whether this was a success or not. So now this is what they're saying. Now Malaysia's king to consult with royals after PM seeks emergency. So what is happening? Again, politics like in every country. Basically, Malaysian PM does not have numbers in the parliament. Now next month, there is going to be a vote on budget. So the PM is scared that he will lose this vote, and once he loses this vote, he will be out of the government. Similar provisions are there in India as well, that if the government, it loses vote on account in the Lok Sabha, then it has to resign, because that amounts to a no confidence motion. But important part is that in India, all the voting related to budget, the voting part takes place in the Lok Sabha, and in general, the government has majority in Lok Sabha, so it is always saved. But in exceptional circumstances, it could be a case where government loses vote on account, and then it would have to lose vote on account and appropriation bill. If government loses all of those crucial bills in a budgetary process, it has to resign. So the Malaysian opposition leaders say the PM's attempt to impose emergency is a political move to ensure government survival. The move comes after the opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim had claimed to have numbers in parliament to bring down Muhyiddin's government. A vote on budget early next month will testify the claim, and if Muhyiddin is unable to get budget passed in parliament, his government is likely to fall. But an emergency declaration could mean that the budget is not put to vote. However, the government says that the move is to bring an emergency has to do with rising COVID cases. So politics everywhere. Then controversy over old map of Nepal in Oli's Dashera greeting card. So this was the case. We've discussed it. I've also shown you the map. And please watch that video about this controversy, right? I'll be providing the link. Then China government uses United Front to gather intel on citizens abroad, says US deputy NSA. So basically, this company Zenhua data, it was collecting metadata and it was creating profiles about millions of people. And when there was investigative journalism and they used big data analysis, so they found out that even for Indian population, they were collecting data and making sensitive profiles. That profile contained everything, what you like, where you roam around, what are your habits, by just using your mobile data or the data that you share. Those under this scanner were President of India, Prime Minister, Congress President, and all those people. So Deputy NSA is saying that they are running a more sophisticated program than we know of, and Zenhua was just a small part of it. And he says that this whole process is United Front, and China is using its apps and the machines that it has installed in other countries to collect their data. So if you want, you can read this. Just take a screenshot and then you read the relevant parts from your newspaper. And if you don't have Indian Express, you can take a screenshot and read it from here. So folks, that is all for this video. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel. Also press the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any new videos, and please give us a thumbs up if you liked our videos. Also connect with us on our Instagram page UPSC for everyone, and please connect with us on our Telegram page where you can access the PDFs of the videos that I'll be posting daily, right? So see you next time. Till then, stay happy, stay safe, and have a great day. Namaste and Jai Hind.